Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Middle Class Rockstar. It's episode 55. My guest today is CaitlinCannon. I usually talk for a minute before I introduce the artist, but I guess I'm not doing that today. You'll probably like it that way better anyway. My guest today is CaitlinCannon. She just put out a new album called the TrashCannon Album, actually back in May, but a 2020 album nonetheless. The TrashCannon Album, and it was produced by Megan Burt, who was on this show just a few episodes back and has a really amazing story. So go back and check out her episode as well. But anyway, this TrashCannon Album, I would say bridges on country, but has a lot of other influences too. She grew up listening to drive-by truckers and Gershwin and Cole Porter and 90s country radio, old rock and roll, all kinds of different influences, and it really shows here. Caitlin and I first met because I was backing her up on keys at the Sheridan Opera House in Telluride a few Halloweens ago, and we met there. The show was a lot of fun, and then we may have seen each other at the Durango Songwriters Expo as well. And the Durango Songwriters Expo is just a great community for songwriters. It's not just in Durango. In fact, it's not in Durango at all anymore. It's a music conference that happens in Broomfield, Colorado, and also happens in Ventura, California, and they do a couple other events as well. And essentially, it's capped at 200 people. You come with your music, and you get to pitch your music or get critiques from industry professionals 3 times. You get to showcase, you get to do open mics, and it's a really, really excellent community, and everybody I've met there, I've become long-lasting friends with. And CaitlinCannon is a Durango person as well as I am. So shout out to the Durango Songwriters Expo. But her new album is wonderful, and the conversation we had was really great too. It was deeply personal. We talked about some of the tracks on the album. A couple of them deal with her sobriety, and she's gone through a couple spells of relapse and getting sober again. She's been sober for a few years now. And then there was another song that really hit me too called Mama's a Hairdresser. And that's a story about her and her mother are both both hairdressers, both do things with hair. Barbers, I guess. I don't know what the correct term is. They both work with hair. And her mother, every 6 weeks, gets a plane ticket and goes and flies to visit Caitlin's brother. Caitlin's brother has been serving a life sentence without parole since age 17 in Alabama, I believe, if I remember correctly. And we talk about the prison system in this episode and find out some really interesting things, get a really interesting perspective from somebody who is closer to it than a lot of people are. And it was just a really great conversation. I was really grateful to have Caitlin on for the first time. And I hope you enjoy this episode. And also, we're going to listen to Mama's a Hairdresser at the end of the episode. So stay tuned till the end, and you can hear the song that we've been talking about. Big news for Middle Class Rockstar podcast, which you've definitely heard about if you're a regular listener of the show. We just teamed up with Chris K's Colorado playlist about 6 weeks ago or so. And essentially, we're clipping out an 8-minute segment of these episodes, and Chris K is airing them on his show, which gets aired on 27 FM frequencies around Colorado. Big thanks to Chris K for allowing us to collaborate in this way. And Chris K's been on the show twice now, and he has a lot of great things to say around the industry, especially from the radio side of things. If you enjoy the podcast and you want to help out in a completely free way, please rate and review wherever you listen to your podcasts, especially on Apple Music. It only takes a few seconds to give it a 5-star rating and a quick review, and it really, really helps me out a lot. If you're in a position to help out in a monetary way, I'm now on Patreon at patreon.com/Andy Sido, spelled SYDOW. And that's for both my artist career and my podcasting stuff. It's all under one roof, and that just helps ensure that I can keep growing this thing. And you can support on Patreon for less than the price of 1 cup of coffee per month. I stole that from Joe Pug because I love it and it's true. $3 a month. And you can help out the podcast in a big, big way. We're going to jump into my conversation with Caitlin Cannon, but first I want to say a very quick thanks to our sponsors. First, PQ Mastering. Patrick at PQ Mastering puts the finishing touches on this podcast. And for any of your audio or restoration needs, go to www.pqmastering.com. Also, Narrator Music. If you go to narratorrf.com, you can look for simple and affordable licensing for sync for any purpose. What's up?
What's up?
Where are you right now? I know you moved back and forth a little bit.
Yeah, I'm in Durango, Colorado. Where? Well, actually, did I meet you in Durango, Colorado, or was it Telluride?
I think we met in Telluride. Did we rehearse before the show?
I'm trying to think.
I don't think so.
I don't think we did.
Oh,
well, no wonder. That's why our sound check was so long.
It was the longest. I will remember that show at the Sheridan Opera House on one Halloween year 4 or 5 years ago, I don't know, as being the longest sound check of my life.
The sound check was longer than the show.
Yeah, we played the set like 3 times for the sound check, I think.
Yeah, I think that was our rehearsal. But, I mean, I don't know. I think of myself as being greener then, although when I was really green in New York, it was like so much easier to work with me because I didn't know anything, I think.
Yeah.
And I was working with a lot of people who knew what they were doing. And then when I moved to Colorado and I was like, well, I just started pulling, the people who, like Brian actually the guy who did our sound that night ended up making a sound and lighting company here that's just totally successful. He sets up stages all the time. Of course, now he has a GoFundMe because no one can make money doing that.
Right.
But at the time I was just pulling, anybody I could find who would sing or play with me. And that was a little different because, it didn't sound as good.
Yeah, well, you got to find the right people for the song or the set or whatever. And
yeah.
I really, as I'm thinking about it now, I really remember, when I have situations where I have to learn a lot of songs quickly.
Yeah,
I try to look for patterns in the writer, and you guys, I was noticing when there was turnarounds, you would always go 4-chord, not always, but a lot, 4-chord minor 4-1, like the Beatles turnaround thing. I was like, okay, I got this. Anytime there's a turnaround, we got a minor 4 coming. And I remember in the set one time, there wasn't a minor 4, and I felt rather foolish about it because I went.
Yeah, I've been told that because here's a secret. I minored in music theory in college, but I was going to be an actress. So I just I was drunk the whole time.
Right.
And, I can't remember anything. I actually even signed up over quarantine for a very expensive guitar course because I was I'm going to learn this for real. And I still just can't really figure my way out around the fretboard. I think it might have something to do with adult onset dyslexia. I just can't tell where the letters, I don't know where the letters go. And
yeah.
It's all
I think a guitar is sort of is just sort of weird in that way too, because it's not all right in front of you.
Yeah, but I've been told that before. I've been told that I often put in a minor, I go to the minor 4 or something, or the minor, or I go to the 2, or I go to something that's just outside of the family a lot, and it kind of throws people. And then once they get the hang of that, I don't do it. I'm I just don't know.
Which is the best kind of chord progressions. Chord progressions by songwriters who aren't thinking about, let me pull a chord from outside the family here. And those are, it's so funny because I find those some of the most unpredictable and intriguing chord progressions. Yeah. Whereas, I feel like a lot of times I'm trying to do it right with the theory background. And I was like, man, I should just let go of that and just play. And it might sound more natural sometimes.
Well, it's funny is now I have a new project. Oh, I have a new project coming up. It's called Side Pony. It's
Yeah.
Alice Wallace and I are doing it, which is really fun. Her name's Alice Wallace, and it's so fun to say that I just call her Alice Wallace all the time. And I would like it if she would call me
Sure.
Caitlin Cannon all the time because I have the same like alliteration going on, but
Yeah.
it's not as much fun to say Caitlin Cannon as it is to say Alice Wallace. And
Yeah.
so we just call the band Side Pony, and we write we write together, and she has that. She's like, we can't like it's hard for her because I'm like I really want to go to E minor there, and she's like, I'm like, but listen, it sounds cool, and she's like, but it's like it's gonna like it's hard for her traditionalist country,
Yeah.
like it's like just not even in her schema. Like I can just see her brain just like kind of like melting down, and it's been good for me too because I've kind of learned like, oh, this is like why anybody in Nashville can kind of like get up there and play and know exactly what they're doing and where they're going. So
Right.
yeah, I'm trying to like learn the map, but then like go off the path.
Well, and you've got some other influences too, right? I mean, with the theater background and, you listening to Cole Porter and Gershwin and things like that. You've got your ear is going other places from other influences too.
Yeah, I just did. Okay. So I did a cover of What Do You Do When New Year's Eve for my live stream tonight.
Yeah.
And I went, what's the bridge? Um, do you ever edit out when people say like and and think too long about things? I
Not
try not to.
I try not to because it makes it hard to edit the video because I'm editing the video in Logic to eliminate a step. But I listen for it in my own voice all the time and try to correct it every week. You
Right.
know?
I started doing this thing called the Co-Row show, which I'll tell you about in a minute, but I go through and edit out all my likes and ums, and it makes you I mean, you really can hold someone's attention. But
Wow.
what I was saying about, because I go off on a tangent and I'm sorry, but
That's okay.
so in that bridge, where it goes, every invitation you receive, like, like I've always wanted to do that, like they
Yeah.
used to do in all all the Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire movies. So I'm like trying to like put that into my songs now, which is, I actually tried to get Alice to do it, and she was like, "I'm not gonna do that." But it's so fun. Like
Yeah.
just try, like receive, it's
Just do something. Go out there.
just do something,
Uh,
and that's another thing about like these times, corona times, is like I've found myself doing all kinds of strange things just that seem normal to me now, but it's like there's no other outlet for, like, I don't know, I put on, okay, so I got COVID in Nashville when I went
yeah.
down there to record the single that we're doing for the
Did,
Side Pony show.
did it hurt? Or did you have the symptoms?
Um, yes, it was pretty hard on me. I also have like I suffer from allergies, and I think I may have been immune stressed
Hmm.
to this. So it was harder on me than it was on like anybody else who got it. Got it in a session in Nashville, like finally figured out that it was Doug Lancio's son, who brought it home from college. But it's just ironic because like you tried to do everything right. I think I was becoming a little more lenient, but just because I really believed I had already had it.
Yeah.
Um, but once I got hit with it, I mean, I got smashed pretty hard. So I started doing this thing called the Co-Row show because you're out of commission for like the first week, then you start feeling better and you have to like continue to you know to
Be out of
quarantine.
commission. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've done 5 episodes so far, but I've committed to, and this is not a commitment to anyone but me because I only have like, I don't know, 50 to 100 organic views. I paid for some more views,
Hmm. Right.
but like
Right.
I don't know. Yeah. So anyway,
We've all
but
done that.
like, but like I put on I show you how to go full mermaid. So I put on my mermaid tail. There's not any water in Colorado. I don't even know. why I have a mermaid tail in Colorado. I'm just saying
Yeah. That's
there's
part of the show.
yeah, like you might never do that were it not for COVID. So you have to find the silver linings and put on your mermaid tail. So I like show you how to, it's like a how to for like things you might never have thought you would ever want to do and maybe
Yeah.
still don't.
Right. Okay. Okay. So it's not even, so you're just doing whatever.
Yeah, I'm basically doing everything I know how to do.
It doesn't have
So,
to be music related.
well, I put my music in it,
Right.
which is because I was like, I'm going to get everything that I do in one place. So the first episode is how to put on scales nails, make finger like
Oh,
scales on
yeah.
your
I don't know how to
fingernails.
do that.
Yeah. And then the second one is hair extensions because, I have a salon in Durango. So,
Right.
yeah, so I did some of that because people are like making a killing on that.
Excuse me.
And then I know you probably have other questions, so I'll just get through the rest of the Koro Show episodes really quick. 3 is how to be a mermaid.
Yeah.
4 is how to do a chemical plating process of copper onto brass, which involves a lot of chemistry, which is shocking. Like people don't know how smart I am.
Yeah.
You would never know.
And you have a song about it too called Dumb Blonde on the new record.
Yes, and I put that in this episode, and it was perfect.
Oh, that is perfect.
And then the next one was how I make this jewelry, and then the 5th one is going to be I have a sync licensing project called Pop Knot because we're not pop. It's like a little inside joke, but
Pop not.
yeah. I mean, I don't know how have you pursued a lot of that, trying to get your songs
I
into film?
want to do more of that. I've never had a song placed in a film. I had a song purchased earlier this year. It was I did a cover of "Oh Christmas Tree" piano trio kind of thing, and it was purchased by a catalog who's going to turn around and resell it a bunch more times, right? But it's really intriguing to me. I would love to do more of that, and it's not pop for sure.
Yeah. So I got into it,
Yeah.
but I got into it through going to the Durango Songwriters Expos,
Right.
which has, kind of become a family. And
Right.
and which was where I met Andy, which was where, oh, wait, no, I think I met him at the Denver Forum. But anyway, he's gone to that. So, so Andy, who produced the Cannondale's album, who brought you to play at the Sheridan Opera House with me, which is
Right.
how I first met you.
Andy Rock, formerly and again of the Flowbots.
Yeah, he's again of the Flowbots. I saw that. That's so exciting.
Yes.
I love that.
And I met him through the Durango family. I met him at Durango.
Oh, you met him at Durango.
I met him at Durango. Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
Okay. So I was going to Durango and I was pitching like my weird insurgent country music for like 6 years. I did that before they were like, Caitlin, this is never going to be our stuff. Like if I got well known enough, then it might come across like Quentin Tarantino's radar and then it would fit in something.
Yeah. Right.
So like I was like, okay, I'll just go over to the dark side. So I started like writing pop songs, which I found is like really fun. It's really fun to write the worst song you can and then like jam out to it.
Yeah, that's punk rock.
Yeah. It's punk rock. I was like, it's like prunk. Well, pop. What's the smash of pop and punk? Punk.
Punk. Yeah, it's punk. I think they already did that.
No, it's punk.
Oh, punk.
Or pump.
I don't know.
Anyway, so we got Pop Nuts. So I actually like did an episode on how to write a pop song because we had, to get some stuff to the company for pitch. And, it's funny because like doing an episode on how to write a pop song or the following episode is how to write a song about a Viking, which is one of my favorites. But how to write a pop song is really different than like trying to write a song about a Viking, even though there's more grunting going on in the pop song, right? Like the like that's all you got to do to write a pop song.
Yeah. And you went so you decided like I'm going to purposefully write these pop songs.
Yeah, to make money.
Yeah, that is the definition of the dark side. But,
yeah,
but you love it.
Oh yeah, no, I have absolutely no qualms whatsoever about selling out and trying to sell out as hard as I can because music is free now and that's fucked up. Can I say that? Probably not. I
You
just saw
can,
that
you
this
can
is
say
on
it.
Chris K's episode. He's going to have to bleep that out. Do you put a little marker every time I drop an F bomb?
Well, actually, it works to my advantage because Chris has to bleep it out. I
Oh.
That's his job.
Hey, I'll just say thanks, Chris K. He gave my record a lot of love this year and it's
Yeah,
been really cool. Yeah, so like my passion is trash can stuff. And it was interesting because I was hanging out with Megan Burt a lot and she was like, God, you're really all over the place. Like, what do you want to do? It was
yeah,
almost like an intervention. Like her and Katie Laurel were like, your solo stuff was better. Like, why don't you do it? And I was like, because I don't believe in myself, obviously. you know?
yeah, sure.
And they were like, so Megan Burt really like fostered that. And then my record like killed her.
Yeah. Wait, it killed her.
No, she's alive.
Okay.
But
Oh, I was going to say she was just on the show a few weeks ago.
I know, I know. Did she talk about everything she's been going through, or was she fairly
Yeah,
reserved? Okay,
yeah, she talked about it a little bit. Yeah,
yeah. So like, it was like the day we wrapped on my record, like the day I got the masters. Like she got sick and did not get better.
yeah,
And every day I try to think of her and not my own guilt.
yeah,
I mean, it wasn't, no one record isn't gonna take down Megan Burt, but like, she's got her own career to focus on, and it's really hard because like the next record that comes out of her is gonna be so amazing.
oh
But
yeah,
it's just hard when you've got she had COVID right after me. That on top of Lyme is like, whoa. I mean, she's getting her ass kicked. So, but
yeah,
it just means her music will be better. So I
yeah.
hope that yeah, maybe music won't be free anymore and then she can actually like
Maybe
support her life.
make some money. And what did that mean for you having Megan produce the record?
Well, it's weird when you become like friends with your people you're a fan of. Like when I felt like I was really green when I met Megan, it was the year she won the songwriters competition in Lions.
Yeah,
And she was just really different and but she was just a very cool person. And at that point, I think we shared like a mutual cynicism, but it was like still involves unicorns and rainbows and mermaids and things.
right. Mermaid Tale.
Great. Yeah, it's great when you can sort of like find those people, people who will like put on a unicorn horn with you, but like also like be cynical. That's the best
Yeah, absolutely.
friend. Yeah. So,
You're on the same wavelength with each other.
yeah, I was shocked when she offered to produce it. I was shocked because it made me, I had to step into some ownership of like, well, if Megan is going to do this, I know that it must be worthy.
Yeah,
And then it ended up being like really worthy. My record did really well. I'll just say it's the TrashCannon album, and it was just named one of Saving Country Music's most essential records of 2020. And it it just went farther than I ever could have expected it to go with like my grassroots efforts. I'd love to have some muscle behind me for the next one, but for this one, it was just like Megan, and then once her job was done, I was solo ninja Jedi.
what did you solo Ninja Jedi do? Did you hire a publicist? Did you email everybody, on the big list? What did you do?
So first, when we were in post, I applied for that grant from Colorado Creative Industries,
Yeah,
the career advancement grant, and I got it. And it was because I was like, look, I'm doing like kind of a reformist feminist country album. There isn't like a whole lot of that, going on. Uh, there's not a lot of music in that genre and in Americana, at least at the time. I'm hearing a lot more now, like a lot more in 2020, but like from like the female perspective,
Right.
you know, like, and my record really like it's the female perspective, like what it's like to be a daughter, sister, you know, a drunk woman, a sober woman, a spiritual woman, a reckless woman. It's like all this different sides of, you know, you or me. I don't know about
Yeah,
you. I mean, I'm sure you've got some of that in you.
of course.
You've got a little drunk woman in there, don't you?
Yeah, it's not a little. It's all over. After 5 o'clock, you see drunk women all over the house,
Nice.
and I'm
Yeah.
not talking about Allie. It's me.
That's awesome. Oh yeah. I saw your picture on the Insta. Or is that a new love?
We're engaged. We got that was our engagement
Oh,
photo. Yeah, we just
okay.
got engaged 2 days ago, 3 days ago, something like that. Thank
Congratulations.
you.
Ooh, I just love that. I just love love.
Me too. I mean, after being a hopeless romantic for years, you know, finally,
Yeah. Yeah. Did you get a ring and do the whole thing and get down on one knee and do all that?
I did. But we went up to Grand Lake, which is where we go up there like once a year or whatever and just spend a night or two because nobody's in Grand Lake in the winter. It's a summer town. And I was going to propose, but the place I was gonna like have one of the Airbnb people come up and bring drinks to our room, but the restaurant below us was closed. So the Airbnb host let me use another Airbnb room just for a couple hours to set it up for the engagement.
Oh,
And it was really cute, except for the fact that Allie was feeling sick all day. And she started to feel better. And so I set up the whole room. I said I was going out to take some pictures, set up the room, right? And then I get back and she's like, I can't do it. I can't go out anywhere tonight. I'm staying in. And I said, no, you got to put on jeans. We're just gonna, we're gonna go for a walk or, whatever. And I finally got her upstairs and did the whole thing.
oh man, that's the worst.
I know I felt bad, but I was like,
It's like,
man,
oh,
like
you're
even
gonna
even if she
thank
just
me
got
later.
news that her poor mother got hit by a semi truck or something, we've got burning candles upstairs, Rocky Mountain Highs playing on repeat. Like, put on some pants, let's get this show on the road.
Oh, it's funny. I mean, it's just really funny. Like, yeah, I feel like more and more in our sort of like, you know, generation, like it's cooler not to have any like expectations of people, you know, like it's better. I remember coming from New York to Colorado and like being in a band situation and being like, oh wow, like people aren't on time here and they're super high. So it's like really go with the
Yeah,
flow.
yeah,
And it was totally different from like what it was in New York, which everybody's all stressed out and about efficiency and, you know, won't look each other in the eye.
right, right.
So, like, but it's just kind of funny because like when you even in your relationships, they're a little more like that, you know, especially as I get older and you have relationships with people, you know, it's like you're a little set in your ways, both of you, the older you get. So
Sure.
like I can just think about like if the person I was dating, if I was like, put on pants now, we're going, you know, like it would be I don't know if I'd be able to get them to do it. I'd probably end up like throwing the ring at them and, you know,
Yep.
marry me, you asshole. Anyway,
I'm glad no rings were thrown. At
yeah,
least
me
not
too.
by her.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Well,
that'd have been bad.
congratulations. That's what I meant to say.
There's a roundabout.
uh,
But so
anyway, what were we talking about before that?
I have I have no idea. These are my favorite conversations. We're just jumping around. But we're talking about the album and Megan, and I think you mentioned before this conversation started that this being December 31st at time of interview, this is your last day to claim that you have a new album out.
Yes,
So you gotta pump it today. This is it.
this is it.
Old news tomorrow morning.
It's no longer. It's tomorrow's 2021. My record will be so last year. You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have a new record for one day only today, and uh, the really cool thing about this record that we made was that like Megan started the whole conversation by like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want a record that sounds like this, and this, like, my 5 favorite bands or whatever, which is like a mix of, Uncle Tupelo from the 90s and then Shovels and Rope, which was more modern, but then I want some like Jeff Tweedy in there and, like,
Yeah, yeah, yes, a little bit of all of it.
yeah. And so she was like, okay, well, I don't really know any of those bands because, Megan, I mean, she's got all that like blues influence, but she's basically, I think, more well versed in every genre but country. But she was working on her Americana project, Ginger Bomb. So like, I think it was the combination of like me having clear ideas about what I wanted, and then Megan like having the ability to like just having the musicianship to pull that out of, and the instincts to like pull that out of players, that like we were able to make something that sounds like really cool and distinctive. And I think that's why it did so well, is that it just doesn't really sound like anything else, which also kind of hurt me a little bit with like the country traditionalists, who were like, oh, you're pulling from too many genres. But I
Right.
think with the next record, I would like to go even further in that direction, because I'm influenced by all that stuff. I'm influenced by Golden Hollywood era. That was like how I survived my childhood. And then
Yeah, it's part of you.
and classic country.
Right.
Then like you've got all of the offshoots of music, and it's just weird that we still have to like pick one.
Well,
Of the,
and I feel like you see the people that really make a fuss are the people like you who are just, well, fuck it, this is what I do. These are all the things, and you put it out, and then that sort of becomes a genre of some sorts,
if
and
you're lucky.
right, yeah, if you're lucky, right. Sturgill Simpson
Yeah. Great.
is a great example. If he put out one of his more recent albums now, and nobody knew who it was, we probably wouldn't be listening to it. I mean, he sort of made his own thing, and now people are doing that.
I know. It's cool because like I remember when I went to see him in Denver. I can't remember what venue it was, but and I was like, "Oh, he's got a horn section." It was
Yeah.
right after he put out that record, the second record after his like blow up record, the Journey to the Middle of the Earth. I can't. Here's another thing.
Yeah.
No, Sailor's Guide. It's
Sailor,
Sailor's Guide.
uh,
That
Sailor's
one.
Guide to the Universe. Is that it?
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
this is bad. We should
well,
both know this.
it is, but like I've also you have to give yourself a break, because
Right.
the way that we're so saturated with music anymore. Like Jason Isbell's my favorite songwriter. He's my
Yes.
favorite songwriter. And like
Agreed.
I don't know, it's like there's so much music to consume that you have to like I mean, I can tell you every single track on like Anodyne, like Uncle Tupelo record from like 1982.
Rad.
I think it was 88. I don't even fucking know. But anyway, like the fact that I even have the right decade,
Yeah.
like now it's just different. There's so much music to consume. You maybe don't even get through the whole song.
Yeah.
I mean, we have just like a totally different kind of brain, because our brains are getting all like digitized.
Right.
So it's hard to like know the names of things. Also, maybe it's because we're all on Adderall and losing our memory.
That could be it too. That
Yeah.
could be that could be part of it.
But you're right. We should do better. We should do better. It's just there's a lot.
There's a lot. There's too much. It's
And
and I fit it's hard. It's easy. It's nice now that you can be an indie artist to put stuff out, but it's also harder than ever in some ways, right? Because yeah, there's so much.
there's so much. I was looking at the I have this distributor, and they send me the list of all the countries that played Trash Cannon songs, and there's a lot. I'm like, dang, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like, what am I'm like, wow, I'm making like $50 off of people doing Spotify spins, like 0.3 cents. I'm like, that's a lot to get
That's a
up.
lot of plays.
That's a lot, yeah, and like, but that's so sad. you know but like at the same time it's like, well, is it because of the way the streaming platform is that I have that kind of reach,
Right.
or like would I
Right.
have that anyway? Like I do try to like I try to adapt because my two closest friends get mad at me for saying this because they say there's no scientific basis. But I believe that there are 500-year-old men living in caves in like the Himalayas. And the reason I think that they can do that is because they're
That might
willing.
be the Adderall.
I know it's not, it doesn't really help my ADHD that much. Like people are like, Caitlin, can you just like finish a thought, take a breath, and let someone else get a word in? And maybe like try to stick to one subject at a time. But anyway, I always circle back. So like the reason they are able to live in their bodies for 500 years is because they're willing to adapt. And
Yeah,
that's the lesson,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
so I'm trying to adapt, but I do think like it would be great if we could figure out how to make a living from music anymore, because I
Right,
don't know anybody who really can. I mean, you got to like cross over into the 1%,
right.
which is why I love the title of your podcast.
Middle class rock star.
But I think it should be lower middle class.
Yeah, no, no, no. I think that's kind of part of the joke of it too.
Well, I was like, what do you talk about on that podcast? You probably talk about your music, but you probably talk about your day job too, like the other things you do to make
Yeah,
money.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, you're always dipping, I feel like I myself am dipping into a million different things, teaching, producing, sending piano tracks to somebody, songwriting, all of it. But that's okay. That's okay. We're adapting, we're having a good time, and we're going to continue to adapt for another 400 and some odd years.
Yes. And then, doesn't that just take the pressure off?
Takes the
Knowing
pressure
there's
off,
400 years available,
right?
400 some odd more.
Right. Right. There would have been no rush for Thomas Edison to invent the light bulb or anything like that. Is that who invented the light bulb? I think so.
I
Um,
think we should know that.
yeah, yeah.
We need to do
More
better.
time would be nice. Get more Netflix shows in. What?
Yeah.
So, looking at a couple of these songs on the record, one that caught me was "Mama's a Hairdresser."
Thanks.
Talk about that one a little bit.
My brother is serving a life without parole sentence in Alabama. He's been in since he was 17, and now he's 37. And we're very close. And my mom, who taught me to cut hair, has gone to see him every 6 weeks. So she flies down and does enough haircuts to see him because he's in Alabama and she's in Colorado. And most of the guys in his situation, like over time, their family members. I mean, it's rare. It's rare that you continue to have like a lot of people to advocate for you. And he's certainly earned that. Like he's on a spiritual path, and I think of him more as like being like a monk in a cave.
Yeah.
And I do being in like the third most violent prison in the United States, which it is, which is very scary. But the thing about prison reform and like my personal kind of advocacy for it, which is mostly in my music. Like I've tried to do a lot of other things over the years, but like now I'm really like starting to like sing about it more
Yeah.
and go there in my writing. And it's that our society treats inmates as if they are subhuman. And I really, I got to do Megan the prison tour because Megan needed some backup and she wasn't able to complete the tour. So I finished out the tour for her and I sang Mom as a Hairdresser to like rooms of hundreds of men serving life sentences in like 10 different SCIs or correctional institutions. And it was so interesting how like the staff, the guards, treat you differently after they know that. Like I wouldn't tell them about like my brother, but once I got up to perform, I would like establish that connection with the men before I would like sing these songs. And
Yeah.
I also think I'm not sure how many of those guys are going to concerts hearing music that's like from the perspective of the life that they're living,
Right.
because I wrote that song about how the experience of going to visit him just doesn't change. And I only had two verses and a bridge to really explain it. So I really tried to get to get just what that one piece of it is like, you
Yeah.
know? And I really wanted to get in there how they're like good men who were locked up when they were kids. So in a lot of ways, they still are kids, and the circumstances are just very, very hard and harsh. And like it's equally as hard on their family members who don't abandon them. And so I tried to like show, not tell that. But yeah, Megan took, when my brother calls, it says, you have a collect call from an inmate at, and you get the
Yeah.
whole recording. And I put the microphone up to the phone and got a little Logic recording of that and sent it to her, and she embedded it in the track. And
Cool.
it's just like sounds. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like a sonic masterpiece, it's like so
Yeah.
great. And it's so visceral. Like anybody who has anybody in the system would like definitely feel that. So yeah, I'm hoping that like when I'm dead, it'll get some really good circulation
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so
in
yeah,
600 years from now.
it's such a yeah, right. It's such a powerful song. And also I think maybe there's the issues of the prison systems have been brought out a little bit with some of the stuff that's on TV. I know there's that Netflix show about every episode's with a death row inmate.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know what that's doing positively or negatively for the system, but I just know I think that people are a little bit more aware of what's going on. Um,
I mean, that is where it starts. Like it's in the conversations that you have but lawmakers are, especially in the South, are just so steeped in, I mean, God, 30 years it took us to get them to reduce his sentence from life without parole to life with. And he's still awaiting a parole hearing. And it takes, I mean, it was Miller versus Alabama, and they ruled juvenile life without parole unconstitutional. That was the Supreme Court, and then the state of Alabama said, okay, but it's not retroactive. And then Supreme Court
uh,
was like, no, it is retroactive. And then Alabama was like, okay, 40 years. And then Supreme Court was like, try again. And then Alabama was like 30 years. And they were like, okay, well, that took 5 years for them to do all that back and forth. I mean, the litigating, it's
uh,
really very, very painstaking. So,
at
yeah.
the root of it, what being so close to the subject, at the root of it, what do you know about what's wrong with the system that most of us listening might not know?
Oh man, this is going to be like this is a bit of a controversial statement I'm going to make, but like, uh, there's corruption on the enforcement side. So that is like very hypocritical. And there are people profiting off of the lives of enslaved men and women. And, I will go ahead and say, like, I think the percentile, I know it's in the 90s, it might be in the high 90s, but most of the people who are enslaved are African American. White privilege didn't help us in this case, but like, it's not like, it's still not the truth.
Yeah.
So I think it's that, like, it is systemic, it is, prison for profit, and it is like, unfortunately, a classist issue.
Yeah.
It's just, uh, I mean, and that is kind of like the overall, like, kind of existential opinion on like what's wrong with the system, except for the fact that like the system itself is just flawed. Like there's no real humanity in it, and that's upsetting because all human beings make mistakes.
Yeah.
Not one human being is going to be perfect.
Right.
So I think that like instead of just locking people up, prisons should actually be about reform. Now some people are not capable of reform. Some people aren't, but some
Yeah.
people are. And the people who are, I think should have that opportunity so that they can contribute to society,
Yeah.
you know? So yeah, we got issues.
Well, thank you for chatting about that and giving your insight. And thanks for the song that came out of it too.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for giving me this platform to talk about it.
Absolutely. It's such an it is a big problem, and I don't know what happens to fix it, but I do see, you know, that it's being talked about more, and that, like I said, there's TV shows, there's documentaries, and I think that's maybe a positive step, maybe a slow positive step, but a positive step, hopefully nonetheless.
We got to start talking to each other more. Like, that's where it's in your personal daily conversations. And there's so many subjects that are just so taboo that people want to avoid. And that's kind of like what my record is. Like, I like to make jokes about things so that even if you're on the other side of me, you can still have a laugh.
Yeah,
Because the thing that connects us all is that like we're all human, like
right,
every single human knows what it's like to feel oppressed in some way,
right,
even if that hasn't been the through line of your life. Like you should still be able to like have empathy and relate to any human beings. And we just don't see each other as the same. And like we are the same,
right.
I mean,
Well, and that's your album is very relatable, I think, because it's deeply human and deeply personal, and not really shying away from anything. And the way you present it is just great. And there's two others, Deliver and Drink Enough, that chat about. Well, I assume have something to do with the sobriety, right?
yeah, I wrote Drink Enough in a Blackout. And then I like it was in my voice memos the next morning, and I was like, "That's super good." I was like, "I'm gonna finish that." And then "Deliver" was the first song I wrote when I got sober, which was, I mean, "Drink Enough" was, we put that fun like '60s pop sensibility in it, which was always sort of my vision for it, but that song comes from the lyrics are really, if you listen to them, it's like really painful. You have this realization of like what you have become,
Right,
and it's like totally mediocre and like even just below mediocre. I mean, that's
right,
the worst.
right.
I mean, not literally, because the worst is not mediocre, like by definition, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So, and then Deliver was, it's so funny because that's been probably the favorite song on the album.
yeah,
And that song just kind of like got me sober. Like as long as I was like playing it in my room, in my apartment at the time, I wasn't drinking because I just had my guitar in my hand. Like I just used that song to like have something to do.
yeah.
And I didn't even really pick up a pen and paper. I just sort of like wrote it while I sang it,
Mm.
until I had like a whole song. And I just like go home and play it every night for like a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
I have no social life. I just,
none of us do, right?
yeah.
Did
But like,
you
even then.
did you was there a rock bottom? Was there a moment where you're like, all right, I gotta do something about this?
Yeah. So I have been sober twice before, and the first time I was young. I was young when I got sober, and I was in Manhattan, and like, all the famous people are in AA, so it was like fun for me to go there and hear the stories. It's like better than television. We didn't
Yeah,
have all the streaming services then, and
right.
it was like and I was like looking for a spiritual solution. I just didn't really know it at the time, so I really dove into AA in New York, and then when I left New York, a lot of my drinking is like involves relationships, and you'll hear that in the record. Like I obviously like have a lot of songs to sing about failed relationships. And
Yeah,
like it's interesting how like I've discovered even through my songwriting that like my addiction plays out that way because and that the first relapse, I started drinking again to get out. I wanted to escape. I didn't want to do it. Like I wanted to leave. And so I drank pretty alcoholically again that time. But then and I got sober for a couple years, and I don't know exactly what happened, but I was dating someone that I didn't feel like we could connect. And so at that point, I used alcohol to try and connect.
Yeah.
And I really tried to drink normally. And
Yeah.
that was the hardest of all the things I've ever done in my life. The hardest thing I've ever done. Like trying to control your drinking when you're an alcoholic, having two and stopping that, I mean, and it just took longer. It just took longer for me to get to the point where I was completely destitute and drinking every day and just not really knowing why I wanted to be on the planet. That's
Right.
where I always end up, you know?
Right.
So like, I don't know exactly what happened, but I remember I went into this AA meeting, and I went in there, and I don't usually like talk too much about that, my experience in AA, because I don't, yeah, well, anyway, I'm not, you know, I think there's a lot of different paths that people can take. But the way that I've gotten sober has been, you know, to go to an AA meeting, you know, when I needed to get sober. I mean, I don't know where else you go. You got to go somewhere where people are doing what you can't conceive of doing, because there's like this veil. And when you're on the other side of it, it's like, for me, it's just impossible to get over there. Like it never would have occurred to me to go to an AA meeting before it would have been to like end my life. Like that would have been the next logical thought.
Right.
So, you know, and then people in the AA rooms are like, oh wow, the courage it must have taken you to come in here. And you're like, there's no courage. Like I just turned right instead of left at the stoplight. Like this is divine intervention of some kind, because I honestly like did not choose to come here.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So I think that there's some of that. Like there's some maybe higher self and guidance, and you, for me, like yeah, I just know now that like I can't drink, and it took me all that time to figure that out. You know, and people say, well, relapse doesn't have to be a part of your story, but like unfortunately, like for me, I really didn't, you know, I really had to go find out, and I'm just lucky that I survived that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And got some good songs out of it too.
Yeah, and I got some really long-winded answers.
I love it. No, it's, yeah. Yeah, it's perfect. One thing I was reading on your website, a quote that you put up was, "My grandmother got me a guitar when I was 13. Before that, I had thought it was just a boy's sport."
Yeah.
Um, and you've mentioned a lot of your influences throughout the last 45 minutes or so. Um, One thing I've noticed as a teacher is a lot of my young boys want to learn male fronted songs, and a lot of my young girls want to learn female fronted songs, because I think probably just because it's relatable for them, right?
Yeah.
Um, was there was there an artist for you when you got that guitar and said, "Oh wait, girls can do this too"? Was there an artist for you that was really special that you latched onto?
Yeah, you know, at that time, not really, because this guy was, I took a few lessons from a guy named Jeff Glover who was friends with my dad. And my dad like was a good mandolin player,
Yeah,
but he was not a present father. And he was this like charismatic figure in my life who would like, you know, jump out of airplanes, and, you know, he like wouldn't come get me sometimes, but when he would, he'd get there early, and with his time that he was sitting in the car waiting for me to get out of school, he'd like whittle a duck out of a block of cedar, you know.
cool.
And or he'd be like in the median like shooting his bow and arrow, you know.
Yeah,
Like he was just this, you know, this guy. And I think at that point, you know, I was estranged from him, and I was, my wanting to like learn guitar was kind of like, why didn't you teach me this, you know? And I think that's another reason why I thought it was a boys sport. Like granted, boys are like, you know, get you, I was trying to sing in the band like well into college, and they were like, no, just go set up the merch table. And that's not necessarily like, there, I'm not saying this is a boy, like a boys club problem. Like,
mm,
I mean, it's just I needed to somehow find the permission to give, like I didn't need their permission to do it. I didn't need their permission to like, you know, get a PA and figure out how to plug stuff in and like suck at that for a while, you know, or whatever. I mean, I still kind of suck at that. I'm like trying to figure out how to like put my DAW into OBS or whatever. But when I got older, it started to be like Patty Griffin. Patty
Yeah,
Griffin was the
of course.
first one where I was like, I'm gonna play Living with Ghosts,
Yeah,
and Cinda Williams and Shelby Lynn. And I wanted to learn, but I wanted to learn Ryan Adams songs too, and I wanted to learn the Drive By Trucker songs and all that stuff.
yeah,
And then I like playing like Shirley Temple tunes on my, I like all the old. I like taking those old standards and like kind of making them modern.
sure.
So, but at the time I was like learning, it was more like the first song I learned on my guitar was Helplessly Hoping by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Really?
Yeah.
You still play it?
No, but I could. I don't think it'd be that hard.
It's still
That was how I learned I still like pretty much do that same finger picking pattern on everything, but I was trying to connect with my dad.
An abrupt ending, I know. We lost connection. I think Caitlin's computer ran out of battery or something, and we called and tried to finish it up, and then we thought, you know what? We ended in a good spot. Let's just end it right there. So, an abrupt ending, my apologies, but that's the end of our conversation. If you liked it, please rate and review it wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really, really helps a ton. It only takes a second. And if you can help out in a monetary way, I super appreciate that as well. Go to patreon.com/Andy Sidow, spelled SYDOW. You can contribute to the Patreon for as little as $3 per month, and that helps out in a huge way to ensure that I can keep on growing this thing. Thanks to Caitlin for coming on the show. We're going to play things out with her song, Mama's a Hairdresser. It's a really powerful song, and I think really relevant after what we talked about. And I'm excited for everybody to hear it. And then after that, go to Spotify, go to iTunes, go to her website, whatever. Support her, listen to her music, drop her a line. There'll be some links in the show notes. Great stuff, okay? Any questions, comments, concerns, hate mail, or death threats, you can direct them to me at middleclassrockstar@gmail.com. I'll chat with you next week. Thanks so much for listening.
Wipe down the chair, sweep up the hair, still time to get to the bank. First pay the man and send what she can to corrections at Alabama State. The clerk takes a look, enough on the books to buy cigarettes and tank. Not everybody can afford the prison store, so he gives half away to his cellmate. Mama's a hairdresser. Knows the drill. Shut up and hold still. Been coming here since he was just a kid. Don't let go of hands the whole time they stand. But she dimes into a vending machine. A Salisbury steak in a microwave. And he says, Mom, I'm eating like a king. Telling all stories long and boring over and over again. But she doesn't mind the same punchlines, 'cause they never get old to him. in a cell, nothing but a shell.